None of this had to be made. You just go to the central wardrobe. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and this is Nazism on Another Planet. This is one of the lazy ways that the original series was able to get shows done. And there's a reason that they did it, and it had nothing to do with the art of it all. It has to do with budget. Desilu Studios was producing Star Trek and Mission Impossible both at the same time. Both were heavy special effects laden shows. And it cost them a mint to do both of these shows. And every once in a while, they would find some way that they could do it on a budget. And what better way to keep costs down than to have really no space things except for just the stock shots of the Enterprise going into orbit around a planet and one ray blast. And everything else was done pretty much, and transporter effect, and pretty much everything else was done without any kind of special effects, without any special makeup, without any special clothing. You just go to a central wardrobe at Desilu and you pick out the Nazi uniforms, and you don't have to change anything. The only thing that they seemed to give to this was flat screen televisions rather than actual TVs, which was not something that existed in Nazi Germany, obviously. I mean, they did have television, just not out in the streets and not that big. And my guess is that they even wanted to make a late 20th century Nazi Germany, as they seem to have done. They wouldn't have had flat screens. They used that because it was actually more expensive to bring in actual televisions and then to trick in the pictures on them, because an actual television picture would not film well. So what we have here is a rogue historian who has decided that Nazi Germany was the most efficient way of running a government in a not well-developed planet with warring factions, and to bring them all together you had to have a common enemy, and so it was the Zeons. And presumably after a few years into this, John Gill lost control of it, and Malakon was the person who picked it up, and he was, of course, a corrupted individual, shall we say. The Zeons represented the Jews, the Ecosians represented the Germans, and Kirk and Spock are there to try to find John Gill and to get him to turn it all around. And in the last moment of the show, of course, John Gill does say, "Oh, we were wrong. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done it this way. Everybody be nice to each other," and it cured everything. Now, they did give a little bit of a few lines to the plants, the underground plants that were in the government, that said, now we can begin to rebuild. And so there may be something to that. And in the times when Kirk and Spock make miraculous escapes and are not noticed and are not recognized, it's even pointed out in the dialogue of the show that we find out later are due to the fact that they had underground plants that knew who they were, but were going to let them do what they were going to do because they figured they were on their side. And so at least that part was okay. The one thing that they had that was bothering me was this subcutaneous transponder. They say, hey, if our communicators are taken away from us, essentially if they're taken prisoner, if our communicators are taken away from us, just zoom in on these transponders, beam us up no matter what. And in an hour, I think is what it was. And so they're down on the planet. They have enough time to see what's going on. They knock out a couple of guards who are actually their size. And they're able to put on uniforms and go right to the Fuhrer's office. And then they're discovered. They're put in the detention area. They are whipped and interrogated, and finally thrown in a cell, and in which they're told that they'll be back in an hour. Now, obviously, some of this has already taken place. There is possibly even in showtime, about 15 minutes has gone by. Let's say that a half hour or 35 minutes have gone by in the time that they have been there, gotten captured, been interrogated, thrown in the jail. All they had to do was wait for the ship in 15 minutes or so to beam them back up. But instead, they dig out the transponders, they use it with a bed spring, which came loose too easily, and hold it in front of a light bulb, and then it has a beam that, while Spock says it would be hard to aim, goes exactly where they need it to, and it even stops once the lock is broken before Spock pulls it away from the light. This bothers me. Otherwise, it was, I mean, if you blow the premise out of the way, let's just say that they set up some kind of totalitarian government where it wasn't Nazis, it was just a dictatorship, they might have been able to get away with some of the stuff that they have done in order to try to make things right, and that would have been okay. My problem is that they were too obviously cost-cutting. They were too obviously throwing together something that wouldn't have happened. No self-respecting historian would have used Nazi Germany as an example. So with that, that's my take on Patterns of Force, and I'd like to know what you think about it now. Please put it in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. And if you liked what we do here, why not click a like, a thumbs up for us, and all of that will help us grow the channel and continue bringing you whatever we bring you here, which on Friday will be another episode of Babylon 5, a retro review of that series, which we are very much enjoying. Hope you are as well. And of course, on Tuesday, we'll be back with another Deep Space Nine retro review. So it keeps going, and probably in now about a week, we will have the new Lower Decks season, which we'll start reviewing on Fridays as well. So if all of that is good for you, why not stay with us? And we thank you for watching us right now, however, and until next time, don't go far.